Okay, guys, thanks for sticking with me through this whole book. Um, we are going to read the last section of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw. So, if you will remember, we are on page 170 and we are entering into a new month in the Wimpy Kid's diary. We're in the month of May. Okay, Sunday. The other day, Mr. Barrett announced that our Boy Scout troop was having a father son camp out this weekend, so I asked Dad if he'd go with me. I was pretty surprised with how easy it was to impress Dad with that one little merit badge, so I figured a whole weekend of him seeing me do macho stuff would totally blow him away. But yesterday morning, I woke up as sick as a dog. I couldn't go, but Dad had to because he signed up to be a driver. I stayed in bed pretty much the whole day. I just wish I'd gotten sick on a weekday instead of a weekend. Last year I didn't miss any days of school, and I promised myself that I wouldn't let that happen again. Congratulations to Greg Heffley for winning the Perfect Attendance Award. The father son camping trip turned out to be a disaster. The phone rang at 10 o'clock last night, and it was Dad calling from the emergency room. Dad got put in a tent with the Woodley brothers, Darren and Marcus, because their dad couldn't come. Darren and Marcus were horsing around in the tent, even though Dad kept telling them to go to sleep. At one point, Darren threw a football at Marcus and hit him in the stomach. Marcus wet his pants, and I guess Darren thought that was pretty funny. Well, Marcus went totally berserk. He bit Darren, and he wouldn't let it go either. It took Dad a long time to pry the two of them apart, and he had to take Darren to the emergency room after that. Dad came home this morning, and he was not real happy with me for getting him stuck in that situation. Something tells me that after this weekend, he's not a real big fan of Troop 133 either. Sunday. Today was Mother's Day, and I didn't have anything to give to Mom. I was going to ask Dad to take me to the store so I could at least get Mom a card or something, but Dad was still recovering from the father-son campout. And I don't think he was looking to do me any favors anyway. So I had to come up with a homemade gift. Last year, I made Mom a chore coupon book for Mother's Day. Each coupon had something like one free lawn mowing or one free window washing on it. I gave Dad a chore coupon book just about every Father's Day, and it always works out great. It's a way for me to take care of my gift obligation without having to spend any money, and Dad never actually uses any of his coupons in the book. Mom cashed in every single one of her coupons last year, so I didn't want to make the same mistake this year. I'm going to Rally's to play video games right after you polish all the silverware. I tried to think of something original to make for Mom today, but I ran out of time, so I ended up piggybacking on Manny's gift. To Mommy from Manny and Greg. Monday. I figured the best way to get Dad to forget that father-son camping mess is to have a do-over. So tonight at dinner, I asked Dad if he wanted to go on a camping trip, just me and him. I've been studying up on my Boy Scouts manual, and I'm pretty eager to show off what I've learned. Well, Dad didn't exactly jump at my offer, but Mom thought it was a great idea. She said we should go this weekend and that Roderick could go too. She said it would be a great bonding experience for the three of us. I wasn't too enthusiastic about that idea, and neither was Roderick. In fact, one of the reasons I wanted to get out of the house this weekend is because me and Roderick are in a fight. Last night, Mom was giving Roderick a haircut in the kitchen. Usually, when Mom gives us boys a haircut, she puts a towel around our necks so the hair doesn't get all over our clothes. But yesterday, Mom used one of her old maternity dresses instead of a towel. So when I saw Roderick like that, I knew I had to take advantage of the situation. I ran upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom before Roderick had a chance to catch me and take the camera. And I didn't come back out until I was sure he was gone. Roderick got me back anyway. Last night, I had a nightmare that I was sleeping on a nest of red ants, and that was thanks to him. The way I see it, now we're even. But if there's one thing I've learned about Roderick, it's that he's still not going to let it go. So that's why I'm not that eager to hole up in a tent with him for the weekend. Today, me, Dad, and Roderick headed off on our camping trip. I picked a place that had a lot of manly activities that you could do. On the way to the campground, the sky got dark and then it started to rain. I wasn't all that concerned because our tent is waterproof and Mom packed ponchos for everybody. But by the time we got to our campsite, it was 6 inches underwater. We were pretty far from home, so Dad decided we should just find a place to stay for the night. I was really bummed because the whole point of the trip was for me to impress Dad with my camping skills, and now we were just going to stay in some stupid hotel room. Dad found a place and got a room with 2 beds and a pull-out couch. We watched TV for a while and then started getting ready for bed. First, Dad went downstairs to the front desk to complain that the heater was too loud, so I was alone in the room with Roderick. I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, and when I came out, Roderick was looking through the peephole. Then he said something that made me freeze in my tracks. He said that Holly Hills and her family were out in the hallway and they were staying in the room right across from us. I had to see this for myself, so I moved him out of the way and looked out the peephole. The hallway was completely empty, and before I realized it was a trick, Roderick gave me a big shove and I fell out the door. Then it got worse. Roderick locked the door behind me, and I was stuck in the hallway wearing nothing but my tidy whities. I pounced on the door, but Roderick wouldn't let me back in the room. I was making a big racket, and I realized people in the nearby rooms were going to start opening their doors to find out what was going on. So I ran around the corner to save myself the embarrassment of anyone seeing me. I spent about 15 minutes sneaking through the hallways, hiding every time I heard voices. I was going to go back to our room and beg Roderick to let me in, but then I realized I didn't even know our room number. And all the doors looked exactly the same to me. I couldn't exactly go down to the front desk either. The only option I had was to try and find Dad. Then I remembered. Dad is a junk food addict. I knew he'd eventually turn up at the vending machine, so that's where I camped out. I wedged myself in between the soda machine and the candy machine and waited. I had to wait a really long time, but Dad finally did show up. You know what, though? After seeing the look on Dad's face, I kind of wish I'd just sucked it up and gone to the front desk instead. Sunday. Well, after our camping trip, I'm pretty sure there's no chance I can convince Dad to change his mind about Spag Union. So at this point, I'm not even going to bother trying. I realized there are only about 3 more weeks before I get shipped out, so I figured this is my last chance to make a play for Holly Hills. If I'm lucky, maybe I can take some good memories with me to military academy and my summer won't be so bad. I've been working up the nerve to talk to Holly for a long time, and I decided it was now or never. When we went to church today, I tried to make sure we sat right near the Hills family, but we ended up 2 rows in front of them, which I guess was close enough. During the part where everyone shakes hands with one another, I made my move. Peace be with you, Holly Elizabeth Hills. The handshaking thing was actually just step 1 in a 2-part plan, and the second part would come tonight. My next step was to call Holly on the phone and use the handshaking thing to get the conversation started. Hi, Holly. This is Greg Heffley. You might remember me from a very special Peace Be With You. At dinner tonight, I told everyone that I needed to make a very important call, so everybody should stay off the phone. But I guess Roderick must have figured out I was going to call a girl because he took all the handsets and hid them. That meant the only way to make a call was to use the speakerphone in the kitchen, but there was no chance of that happening. I told Mom that Roderick took all the phones and she made him return them to where they belonged. Eventually, Roderick went down to the basement. Later on, I snuck into Mom and Dad's room to make my call. I turned off the lights so Roderick wouldn't know I was in there, and I hid under a blanket. Then I waited for about 20 minutes to make sure he hadn't followed me. Before I had a chance to dial Holly's number, someone walked in the room and turned on the light. I thought for sure it was Roderick, but it wasn't. It was Dad. I decided to stay perfectly still and let Dad get whatever he needed and leave. But Dad didn't leave. He got into bed and started reading a book. I should have just uncovered myself the second Dad walked in the room because now I couldn't just get up and walk out or I'd give him a heart attack. So I decided to just sneak out of the room real slow. I moved about an inch a second. I figured it would take me about a half an hour to make it all the way out of the room, but there would still be enough time to call Holly after that. I was only about 5 feet from the bedroom door when the phone in my hand rang and scared the living daylights out of me. I think Dad really did almost have a heart attack, and once he recovered, he didn't look happy to see me. Dad made me get out of his room and then he slammed the door. I'm sure this episode didn't help my standing with Dad, but I guess at this point it's probably too late anyway. Tuesday. 2 days have already passed since I shook hands with Holly, and I didn't want any more time to go by before I spoke with her again. Luckily, Dad and Roderick weren't home tonight, so I knew I could make a phone call without being bothered. I practiced what I was going to say a million times, and then I finally worked up the nerve to make the call. I dialed Holly's number, and the phone started ringing. But right then, Mom picked up the phone downstairs. Mom has this really bad habit of just dialing without checking to see if anyone else is using the phone, and that's what she did tonight. I tried to stop her, but it was no use. Mom! Mom! The phone kept ringing at the Hills house, and then someone picked up. It was Holly's mother. Mom was really confused since she didn't dial the Hills number in the first place. I just held my breath and waited for it to all be over. Hello? Hello? Who's this? It took Mom and Mrs. Hills a minute to figure out who was on the other end of the line, but once they did, they just started chatting like nothing strange had happened at all. They got into this long conversation about the PTA and the fundraising committee and stuff like that. I couldn't really hang up because then Mom would hear the click and know someone was on the other end. Eventually, the conversation between Mom and Mrs. Hills turned to me. Called his brother Ploopy. At that point, I just put the phone down and went to bed. I figure that a phone call between me and Holly isn't meant to be, so I'm officially giving up. Friday. Today at school, I overheard Holly tell a couple of her friends that she was going to meet them at the roller skating rink tonight, and a light bulb went on over my head. After school, I asked Mom if she'd take me to the roll around tonight, and she said yes, but I'd have to get a ride home from someone else's parents, so I invited Riley along. As soon as Riley showed up at my front door, I knew I made a mistake inviting him. Riley had his hair all teased up, and he was dressed just like his favorite singer, Joshy. And I think Riley might have been wearing sparkly lip gloss, but I can't say for sure. I couldn't stop to worry about the way Riley looked, though, because I had my own problems. Earlier on, I had lost one of my contact lenses, so that meant I had to wear my backup glasses. The lenses on those things are about 3 inches thick, and they look ridiculous. If I'm not wearing my contact lenses or my glasses, I'm as blind as a bat. I guess I should have just felt lucky that I wasn't alive during caveman times because I wouldn't have been able to hunt or do anything useful. I'm sure my tribe mates would have ditched me the first chance they got. I probably would have had to become a wise man or something just to make everyone think I was worth keeping around. On the ride to the roller skating rink tonight, I gave Riley some instructions on how to behave if I got into a conversation with Holly Hills. Knowing him, he could seriously hurt my chances with her. I wish I had waited until we were out of the car because Mom overheard our conversation. Holly Hills? Holly Hills was the only 4-year-old at preschool who wasn't potty trained. When we pull up the roll around, I got out of the car before Mom could say anything else I didn't want to hear. Me and Riley paid our admission and then went inside. We rented our skates and brought them over to the arcade area where I scoped out the whole scene. I spotted Holly over by the snack bar. She was with a bunch of her friends, so I wasn't ready to go and talk to her just yet. At 9 o'clock, the DJ announced Couple Skate. A lot of people were pairing up and Holly was sitting at a table all alone. I knew this was the chance I was waiting for. I started making my way over to her, but getting around on skates was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I had to hug the wall just to stay on my feet. It was taking forever, and I realized the song was going to be over by the time I got to Holly. So I got down on my butt and scooted over to her to speed things up. I almost got run over a couple of times, but I finally made it to the snack bar. Holly was still there, sitting by herself. Time was running out, so I had to take a shortcut through a puddle of soda to get to her. On my way across the snack bar, I tried to work out what I was going to say to Holly. I realized I wasn't looking my coolest at that moment, so I knew I was going to have to say something pretty smooth to make up for it. But before I even had a chance to open my mouth, Holly said 4 words that changed everything. Isn't your name Fregley? I started to tell her I was Greg Heffley, the guy from the Doggy Dropped It joke. But right then, couple skate ended, and Holly's friend swooped in and pulled her out onto the rink. I made my way back to the arcade, and that's where I stayed for the rest of the night. Because believe me, I was not in the mood for skating. Can I go get a soda? No. I probably should have realized a long time ago that Holly wasn't worth my time. Somebody who would mistake me for Fregley definitely has something wrong with them. I'm officially done with girls. I should just ask Dad to see if Spag Union has early admission because there's really no point in me sticking around here anymore. June, Friday. Today was the last day of school and everybody was in a good mood but me. Everyone else is looking forward to having fun this summer, but all I've got to look forward to is sit-ups and marching drills. At lunch, everyone handed their yearbooks around for people to sign, and when I got mine back, here's what was on the last page. Don't be a fool. Be cool. Slick. At first, I couldn't figure out who Slick was, but then I realized it was just Rowley. A couple of days ago, Rowley was standing near an older kid's locker, and the guy wanted Rowley to move. So here's what the guy said. Step away from my locker, Slick. So I guess now Rowley thinks Slick is his permanent nickname or something. I just hope he doesn't expect me to say it. I flipped through the pages to see who else signed my yearbook, and there was one that made me stop in my tracks. It was from Holly Hills. First of all, she wrote my actual name, so that means she figured out who I was since Friday night. And second, she wrote KIT at the end, which everyone knows means keep in touch. You'd better believe I'm going to take her up on that offer. Greg, I don't really know you all that well, but you seem okay, I guess. KIT Holly. I handed my yearbook to Rowley to show him what Holly wrote, but then he showed me what she wrote in his yearbook, and it kind of made her note to me look lame. Dear Rowley, you are so adorable and funny. I hope we have the same homeroom next year. Stay cute. Love, Holly. A couple of minutes later, Holly's yearbook came around, and I had the chance to sign it. So here's what I put. Dear Holly, you are a nice person and all, but I only think of you as a friend. From Slick. The way I see it, I just did Rowley a huge favor. I don't want to see him get his heart stomped on by Holly Hills because the truth is, girls can be a little cruel sometimes. Saturday. Today was my only day of summer vacation, and I had to spend it at Seth Snella's half birthday party. I asked Mom to let me stay home so I could enjoy myself, but she said we are going to the party as a family. Dad didn't even bother fighting it because he knew he wasn't getting out of it either. So at 1 o'clock, we walked across the street to the Snella's house. The Snellas really did it up this year. They had a clown making balloon animals and a moon bounce house for the kids. They even had live music. Roderick was pretty sore over that because his band Loaded Diaper tried out for the job, but the Snellas turned them down. Everyone ate lunch, and then at 3:30, the main event started. Mr. and Mrs. Snella had all the adults line up in front of Seth, and they all took turns trying to make him smile. Mr. Henrik went first. I noticed Dad looking really nervous at the back of the line. At one point, I walked by Dad to get myself some cupcakes, and he stopped me. He told me if I could get him out of this situation, he'd owe me big time. I thought it was pretty ironic that Dad would be asking me for a favor, especially since he's the one who's shipping me off to military school tomorrow, so I was fine with letting him squirm. But that doesn't mean I wanted to see my dad acting like a baboon in front of the whole neighborhood either. I thought about sneaking home to spare myself the shame. That's when I saw Manny on the other side of the deck poking around Seth's presents. Manny found the present that was from our family and he ripped it open. As soon as I saw what it was, I knew things were about to get real complicated. It was a blue knit blanket, just like the one Manny used to have as a baby. And you could tell Manny thought he had found himself a brand new tingy. I went over to Manny and told him he was going to have to hand over the blanket because it was for the baby, not him. But Manny wouldn't cough it up. When Manny realized I was going to take away the blanket, he just turned around and chucked it over the railing. The blanket landed in the branch of a tree. I knew I had to get it back before Mom found out, so I got down off the deck and started climbing up the tree. Right when I was about to grab the blanket, my foot slipped and I was left hanging there. I tried to pull myself back up, but I didn't have the strength. I probably would have been able to do it, but the only thing I had to eat today was a grape soda and the frosting off of a piece of cake, so I had no energy. I yelled for help, but I really wish I didn't call attention to myself because right when everyone came over to see what was going on, my pants came loose and fell down around my ankles. It wouldn't have happened if I was wearing my own pants, but I never washed my dress pants after they got that chocolate all over them, so I was borrowing a pair of Roderick's pants which were about 2 sizes too big on me. The situation was humiliating enough, but then I realized something even worse. I was wearing my Wonder Woman underoos. Eventually, Dad ran over and helped me get down, but not before Mr. Snella got the whole thing on tape. And something tells me that this time around he has a good shot at the America's Funniest Families grand prize. After that, Dad hustled me home, and I thought he was going to be really mad at me. But it turns out that my accident happened right when Dad was next up to go in front of Seth Snella, so I saved him from having to take his turn. And get this, Dad thinks I faked the whole thing to bail him out. That's my son. I wasn't about to correct him either. I made myself a big bowl of ice cream, sat down in front of the TV, and tried to enjoy the rest of my one day of freedom, as best I could. Sunday. When I woke up this morning, it was 11:15. I couldn't figure out why I was still in bed because Dad was supposed to drive me to Spag Union at 8 o'clock. So I went downstairs. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table reading the paper, and he wasn't even dressed yet. When I walked into the kitchen, Dad told me he could rethink this military academy thing. He said maybe I could just do some push-ups and sit-ups every once in a while, and that would be just as good as the summer conditioning program at Spag Union. I couldn't believe my ears. I guess Dad felt like he owed me for saving him yesterday, and this was his way of paying me back. I walked out of the house and went up to Rally's before Dad could change his mind, and on my way up the hill, I realized that I was on summer vacation. I knocked on Rally's door, and when he answered, I told him I didn't have to go to Spag Union after all. Rally didn't even know what I was talking about, so that just shows you how clueless he can be sometimes. We played Rally's Twisted Wizard 2 for a while, and then his parents kicked us out of the house. So we grabbed some popsicles and went and sat on his front curb. You'll never believe what happened next. A really cute girl I had never seen before walked up to us and introduced herself. She said her name was Trista and that she just moved in down the street. I looked at Rowley, and it was pretty obvious he was thinking what I was thinking. So it took me about 2 seconds to come up with a plan. But then I had a better idea. Rowley's family belongs to a country club, and he's allowed to bring 2 guests to his pool every day. So that could actually work out real nice. Go fetch us some slushies. It looks like things are finally going my way, and it's about time. I don't know anyone who deserves to catch a break more than me because, like I said before, I'm pretty much one of the best people I know. And I know it's really corny to finish with a happy ending, but it looks like I'm out of paper anyway. So I guess this is the end. All right, guys, we did it. So I hope you enjoyed this book. And I hope that you are encouraged to continue reading. Pick up the rest of the books in this series. They're lots of fun.